Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hello.
Hello, Jay.
Hi.
Hi, Jay, how are you?
Hey. How's everybody?
So Denise is sick, so she's not going to be attending, okay?
Okay.
Ella, did you get my email?
I did, yes. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to respond.
But you're okay?
Yep.
All right, thank you. And Hugo, are you prepared to, or can you be prepared to be the one to read the proclamation?
Yep. I
Yeah?
have it in front of me, so we can definitely read it.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
Chair Terry Andrade also indicated she will not be able to attend.
Okay. And is that the only one you got?
That's the only one I got. That's
All right.
correct.
How are we in the waiting room?
It's clear. There's no one in there.
Hey, how about that? This is pretty good. And Lily, I don't see your face yet, and I see you're muted. If you didn't get my email, thank you for being a backup. If you did get the email, and Ella has confirmed that she will do the reading today, okay? All right, Jay, well, we're ready to go. Are you ready?
Yes, I do want to let you know, Mr. Chair, City Attorney is here also for the discussion on the committee structure. So
Oh,
that's
excellent.
Mr. Jeff Ballinger.
Yeah,
Hello,
perfect.
everyone.
All right, welcome. We appreciate you
Okay.
being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are at 5:31, and we will get the Human Rights Commission meeting for Monday, September 13, 2021 underway. First item for business is roll call.
Yes, Commissioner Loyola,
Present.
Commissioner Vignolo. I
Present.
see you there, David. Thank you. Commissioner Cleary. Not here. Commissioner Robles.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Andrade indicated she will be absent. Commissioner Flood.
Present.
Commissioner Ramaran.
Present.
Commissioner Shepherd, Vice Chair Shepherd. Not here yet. And Chair DeHart.
I am here. So we have a quorum present.
We have a quorum. Yes,
All right.
Mr. Chair.
We will move on to item 5, public comment. Jay, do we have any public comments submitted?
We do not. No public comments.
And so that means I don't have to read the paragraph, right?
That's correct.
Okay, no public comments. We will move on to item 6A, and that is recognition of service. and the individual we're recognizing is ill today. So she let me know just a few minutes ago that she was not going to be able to join us. But in her absence, I just would like to have the full commission join me in singing the praise of Vice Chair Chappelle for her 6 years of dedication and service to the Human Rights Commission for the city of Palm Springs. She was a true warrior for her entire term of service, and there was never an activity or an issue that she would shy away from addressing. And she was always one of the first to raise her hand when something needed to be done, over her term of service. And she was an excellent mentor when I first started on the commission. So we will wish Denise well. And Jay and Annie helped us and coordinated getting a very nice plaque in recognition of her service that was sent to Denise prior to our meeting today. And she let me know that she is going to proudly hang it on her office wall. And if any of you saw her background in her office wall, she was a Human Rights Commission honoree 7 or 8 years ago, and you could see that certificate hanging very proudly behind her in her office. So I know she's going to hang this plaque with distinction. So congratulations and thank you, Vice Chair Chappelle, former Vice Chair Chappelle, and we wish you well in your next endeavors. Next, we've got a conversation and information about standing committee meeting notice requirements. And that's where we have City Attorney Jeff Ballinger with us to share, I believe. Or Jeff, are you going to just give us the background on this?
Mr. Chair, why don't I open it up and give City Attorney Ballinger sort of a runway here.
Sounds good.
Commissioners, as you know, we have quite a few committees, and it has been brought to my attention that these committees are legislative bodies and are required to follow the Brown Act in terms of public meetings and public notices. So, as you can imagine, with all the committees we have, you may be having meetings on meetings, but we do want to have this item for some discussion and then possibly bring it back for action at a future meeting as we discuss the structure of the commission and the goals and various things that we're already doing. So City Attorney Ballinger is here to provide us with some options and alternatives in terms of what we can do. We can continue to do what we're doing and just post and notice the meetings and have them public, but I think it potentially changes the way we've been operating. So how's that, Jeff?
Yep, thank you, Jay. So again, thank you for having me. I'll try and keep this short. So under the Brown Act, you all are a legislative body. And so, your meetings are subject to the Brown Act, need to be noticed and open to the public. The Brown Act also says that standing committees of a legislative body are themselves legislative bodies. Then the Brown Act distinguishes between standing committees and what are called ad hoc committees. And the Brown Act says that a standing committee is a committee that kind of has long-term or perpetual jurisdiction over something. So a lot of times you'll have maybe a finance committee or a executive committee, those types of things that go on kind of in perpetuity. An ad hoc committee is something separate and is not subject to the Brown Act. An ad hoc committee is something that's just created maybe for a short time period just to deal with a specific issue. So maybe the city council is looking to hire a new city manager or build a new fire station, or you as a commissioner are looking to work on a specific project that's kind of limited in time. You could then create an ad hoc committee, and as long as it's consists just of members of this commission, less than a quorum of this commission, and it only makes recommendations. In other words, it doesn't have authority to make a final decision, then that is considered an ad hoc committee and is not subject to the Brown Act. So what we discovered in going through minutes and notes of this commission is that we have a number of standing committees. And as Jay mentioned, if we continue with those standing committees, then they will be subject to the Brown Act and we'll need to post notice and they'll be open to the public. And so the question really for the commission is, do we want to continue with all of those or some of those committees? Do we want to narrow those? Do we want to kind of work more on an ad hoc committee basis, just on specific issues as they arise? And there are other ways to you know, have commissioners involved in things. Some legislative bodies will kind of recognize that one or two of the commission members have a particular area of expertise or interest, and so they'll be kind of a liaison to staff or the public. And they don't necessarily have meetings in the sense of a committee having a meeting, but Jay or other staff or members of the public kind of recognize that those are the one or two commissioners who have a particular area of interest or expertise in that area, and so they'll be kind of the go-to liaisons for that particular issue. I've seen some cities work under that model. Or you could have a combination. You could have standing committees, you could have liaisons, and you could have ad hoc committees. You can really kind of mix and match whatever works for you. Just recognizing that having standing committees does create some obligations on the part of staff with having to prepare the agenda, post it, make sure that the meeting is public, and so that, you know, that does have impacts to staff. So with that, I'm certainly available to answer any questions you might have.
I had one question for Jeff. So what would it take to either dissolve a standing committee or a committee ad hoc committee?
We're assuming that these committees were created somewhat informally, probably by motion or just consensus of this commission, and so it wouldn't take anything more than a motion if we brought it forward at a future item to dissolve a standing committee. That's all that it takes.
Thanks.
So Jeff, a question on a committee that may have a conversation 4 times a year. And specifically, I'm looking at our youth committee, which aren't designated voters of the commission. Does that still fall under Brown Act when we're coordinating with youth service on the commission, working to get information into schools, that type of thing?
I think if we've designated, you know, a couple of the commissioners and maybe members of the public as the people who do that, and it happens on a recurring basis every year, then I think that would qualify as a standing committee, notwithstanding the fact that it only meets maybe 4 times a month. I mean, quite honestly, a lot of times finance committees of city councils will only meet a couple of times around budget time, but the fact that it's recurring every year and kind of lasts a long time, that's what makes it a standing committee. Unfortunately, the Brown Act doesn't set any specific time period, but generally most municipal lawyers say maybe a year or 2. If it's longer than that, then it's probably a standing committee.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
So, Jeff, that stands even if they are not voting members?
Correct. In other words, you as a commission could, you know, create a committee theoretically that doesn't even consist of commissioners. You could create a committee and have it be just, you know, 2 staff members and 5 members of the public. if you create that, even by, a motion or a resolution, then that is considered a legislative body under the Brown Act. And so the only time that it matters who it is in order to qualify for the ad hoc committee exception, it has to be just members of this commission.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Jay and Jeff, for the background. Commissioners, do we have any other questions before we let Jeff get on with his early evening?
Yeah, Jeff, let me ask you, is there any difference in the structure of a committee that's a standing committee versus an ad hoc committee? Does it have to have any kind of charter or follow any kind of specific procedures?
It doesn't have to under the Brown Act. Normally, good governance would say if you're going to create a committee, you want to kind of give it a task and give it some sort of a roadmap in terms of what it's supposed to be doing so that it doesn't go off and, start doing things that the main legislative body didn't want it to do. But under the Brown Act, no, it doesn't distinguish between the two.
Okay.
Thanks.
Commissioners, I would also add later on our agenda is a matrix for looking at the focus for the commission. This is something the city manager's office requested, and they want to bring this to the city council. So we'll be looking at that, and I don't know if that changes your perspective on the breadth of work the commission's doing. In terms of, I think what they're going for is maybe being a little more focused. So I'll just add that before we get into that section of our agenda.
Okay, well, thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks for being with us, Jeff.
All right, yeah, and if any of you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either Jay or myself. My contact information is on the city's website, so I'm happy to answer any questions. If you think of something afterwards and want to just give me a call or shoot me a text, all right?
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
All right, good seeing you.
So with that information, instead of going through one by one here in this moment, my suggestion is that when we get into item 9, that will bring up thought on what step we may want to take with that particular committee or the committee's work. And we can go through them as we would, any other week, one by one. So if everybody okay with going that direction? Okay, I see heads nodding. So we take that as consensus. We will move on to item 7. And item 7, Commissioner Loyola is going to give us an introduction of item 7A, Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had the opportunity to bring this proclamation of Hispanic Heritage Month to present. And obviously the first thing was that this is a celebration nationally, and that there's a significant amount of Hispanic members of our community who are of Hispanic descent, and that our city would be remiss if we didn't have the opportunity to bring this proclamation forward. So we spent a couple of hours researching our data, our statistics, thinking about what would be some of the most important things that we can say about Hispanic heritage. And also at the same time, engaging with a few of our community members who are, visible, whether they're because of the work that they've done or also because of their community service, and invite them to join us in the reading of the proclamation. So this was definitely a wonderful exercise, Mr. Chair, and everyone in this commission. And we have what we believe it will be the proclamation ready, and we would like to bring it forward for a vote, if we may.
So please start reading from the very beginning.
Yep. Would it be, Mr. Chair, would it be okay if I share my screen so that we can all see it together?
Jay, are we able to? And everybody has this in your packet, so you could follow along. But for those that may be watching, you can follow along on the screen once we get it shared.
I don't seem to have the functionality to share.
Okay. Oh, here we go.
Let me give it a try.
Okay, it says all participants can share.
Yeah, it's showing up for me.
So can you all see the screen?
No, not yet.
My apologies. Maybe if we all just follow along with our documents, as I am unable to share my screen. Before I start, does everyone have access to it?
Yeah, I just shared it from my screen, okay?
Okay, so maybe I can read from your screen.
Sure.
All right. So this is a proclamation of Hispanic Heritage Month, which takes place between September 15th and October 15th, 2021. Whereas National Hispanic Heritage Month is an opportunity to celebrate the rich cultural traditions and honor the heritage, contributions, and significant achievements of people with roots from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, Central and South America, including indigenous, Brazilian, and other non-Spanish speaking people. And whereas the city of Palm Springs recognizes the unique diversity and rich histories of the Palm Springs Hispanic and Latino culture, we acknowledge the countless contributions that Hispanic Americans make every day to our culture and to our city. And whereas the day of September the 15th is significant because it is the anniversary of the 1821 Declaration of Independence from Spain for 5 Latin American countries, including Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. In addition, Mexico and Chile celebrated their Independence Days on September the 16th and September the 18th, respectively. And whereas by the 1920s, in Palm Springs, the original Mexican-American pioneer families came to work in agriculture, the railroad, and construction. Their arrival was the beginning of a new life in a new country, and they were instrumental in supporting the growing Palm Springs Village resort destination. And whereas Hispanics are the largest ethnic minority group in the country, the largest and fastest growing minority community in Palm Springs, and represent 26.8% of our entire population with over 12,800 residents. Since 1910, as families left Mexico during the Mexican Revolution, many generations of Hispanic Americans have consistently helped make our city and our community strong and prosperous. They contribute to our community in countless ways, including having positive economic, social, and political impacts. And whereas Hispanic Americans embody the best of our American values, including commitment to faith, family, and to our country. Brave Hispanic Americans protect us and have served proudly and bravely in all branches of our nation's military since 1861. Hispanic Americans work in industries that are essential to the continuous growth and prosperity of our economy, including construction and manufacturing, retail, food and hospitality, healthcare and social services, transportation and warehousing, and residential and commercial services, among many others. And whereas most students graduating from college in Palm Springs are Hispanic or Latino with a large number of degrees awarded to licensed practical and vocational nurse training, nurse assistant and patient care assistant, medical assistant, and home health aide. And whereas we are proud of the Mexican heritage that includes Indian and Spanish blood and centuries of hope and sacrifice, diverse Mexican American, Chicano, Latino, Spanish, Latinx, or Hispanic cultures are essential to defining the unique culture represented by our community members residing within the city of Palm Springs. Now, therefore, be it resolved, we, the undersigned members of the Palm Springs City Council, do hereby proclaim September 15 to October 15, 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month in Palm Springs, and encourage all residents to celebrate the rich culture, heritage, diversity, and achievement of Hispanic and Latino Americans, and go forward every day recognizing their contributions in the great city of Palm Springs. Be it resolved, this celebration serves as an opportunity to dispel ignorance, prejudice, and fear through education about multiculturalism and the resilience and history of the countless contributions of Hispanic and Latino identified communities. Be it further resolved, the city of Palm Springs encourages and promotes strong and inclusive communities, and it is committed to recognizing and celebrating efforts to bring people together for a greater good.
Very nicely done. Thank you for reading that. It certainly was not a short proclamation, and you did a great job. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we, is there any questions or discussion that we'd like to enter into? I would make just one note, or actually, I think Commissioner Loyola, if you would like to move, we'll entertain a motion to adopt this resolution, and then we can have discussion, and then I will make some comments.
Okay. So do we act on a vote? Is this?
Yeah, you move to for the Human Rights Commission to adopt this resolution, for presentation on October 15th or
Okay,
September 15th.
Okay, so I move on this commission to adopt this resolution and to have the read of the proclamation on September 15th.
Is there a second?
Is there a second?
Can I just ask a question, Chair? On this
Now we can have discussion. So
Now discussion. Okay.
so go ahead, Commissioner Vignolo.
Thank you. Can we adopt this resolution if one of the third paragraph from the end is the undersigned members of the Palm Springs City Council? Would they not be the ones adopting the resolution and not?
But normally we would, yes, good observation, and that is going to be the friendly amendment that we can make. Jay, my understanding is council won't have time to adopt this by September 15, right?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I think they adopted it at the meeting last week.
Oh,
They
Yeah.
did. Okay, I didn't hear them do that at the meeting. Oh, excellent. Well, thank you, Jay.
But,
then
let me double check that. I don't want to say that, but I'm pretty sure Mayor Holstage read the resolution.
oh, excellent. Well, thank you for coordinating that, Jay. I didn't know it was going to be able to get in front of them. All right, with that, why don't we just have a friendly amendment to the motion that if council has not adopted the resolution, we substitute in the resolution where it says City Council to say the Palm Springs Human Rights Commission. And we make that change in both instances where it references City Council. And no change will be required if City Council adopted the resolution at their September 9 meeting. The amendment, those changes are accepted by the motion and Vice Chair Shepherd. Commissioner Loyola? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So all in favor of adopting the resolution as stated with the amendments if necessary, please signify by saying aye.
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 And this is an aye.
All right, I was going to say I didn't see yours yet.
And this is definitely an aye for me. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you for that, and thank you, Commissioner Loyola, for the work you did on putting that together. It's very much appreciated. I think we probably, I'm sorry, I lost my notes here for a minute. I don't think the motion said that we were going to present it with community members and city council member Garner at 5:30 on September 15th. I think let's just get endorsement by the full commission to present the proclamation with city or not necessarily city residents, but community leaders from the Hispanic and Latino communities, and we'll present it at 5:30 via Zoom with Councilmember Garner. Donna, Vice Chair Shepherd so moves. Do we have a second? Commissioner Loyola seconds that
Yes, I
motion.
second that, yeah. Mhm.
All in favor of the presentation on September 15th at 5:30 via Zoom, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And that looks unanimous, no opposition and no abstentions there. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And we will work with Jay to get a Zoom time. Jay, if you can get that time to, well, the whole commission, but to Commissioner Loyola and myself, we will inform the other participants or that, for their, so they can come in and participate as part of the presentation. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I actually have a conflict. We have a Public Arts Commission meeting at that time this Wednesday.
Okay.
So my Zoom account will be occupied.
All right. Well, you and I can, let's coordinate that with other folks in City Hall, and we'll figure out how
Okay.
that's gonna work. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Now we do have an International Day of Recognition, and we have a presentation on that item. It's not a proclamation, it's just a presentation. And our student representative, Ella Cash, was going to read that for us.
October 17th is International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. In a world characterized by an unprecedented level of economic development, technological means, and financial resources, that millions of persons are living in extreme poverty is a moral outrage. Poverty is not solely an economic issue, but rather a multidimensional phenomenon that encompasses a lack of both income and the basic capabilities to live in dignity. People living in extreme poverty, often through sheer necessity, are the first to act decisively within their communities in response to poverty, climate change, and environmental challenges. However, their efforts and experience often go unnoticed and underappreciated. Their ability to contribute positively to solutions has been overlooked. They are not recognized as drivers of change, and their voices are not heard, especially in international bodies. This must change. The participation, knowledge, and contributions and experience of people living in poverty and those left behind must be valued, respected, and reflected in our efforts to build an equitable and sustainable world in which there is social and environmental justice for all.
Excellent. Thank you for reading that. We appreciate it. Next item, now that our recognitions are taken care of, we move on to item 8, approval of the minutes. And we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as stated, unless there's any corrections that folks would want to bring forward.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the minutes.
First by Commissioner Flood, and a second.
I second.
All in favor?
I had some
Aye.
corrections on it, Chair, though.
Go ahead.
Just for accuracy, I had already mentioned to Jay that, let me look at my notes real quick. Let's see, it would be under 11, E as in Echo or Edward.
Mm-hmm.
The third bullet, J, I don't think I welcomed the new commissioners. I think somebody else welcomed the new commissioners because I was a new commissioner. Maybe I inquired about community assignments. But then I don't think I was the one that wanted to see the commission recognize Hispanic Heritage Month. I think that may have been a different commissioner. I don't know. Those were the only two things that stuck out because they referenced me. So just, I don't know if you wanted to go back to the recording and see if or how you check those. I don't know.
I would just say that's an erroneous entry, Jay, and strike the entry.
That's fine.
Okay. The motion, we need the motion restated with the corrections as stated by Commissioner Vignolo. Commissioner Flood.
I so moved.
No. So Commissioner Flood is making the motion to adopt the minutes with the corrections as noted by Commissioner Flood and Chair DeHart to Jay. Seconded by
I second.
Commissioner Robles. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, yes, yes. Commissioner Rama, yep, okay, unanimous. Thank you very much, and thank you for that sharp eye, Commissioner Vignolo. We appreciate that. Next up is item 9, and this is the time when we report items of discussion and action. In the last meeting, maybe the last 2 meetings, we haven't really been going line by line unless there was something to share with the full commission. But today, let's go through line by line, and then we can decide how we shift from a standing committee to a different form of reporting back to the commission. So with the executive report, we did meet maybe a week and a half ago or so. And this is certainly a committee that is a standing committee in all sense of the word. So until we know that this committee may not continue to meet, I think we need to accept and understand that the executive committee will continue in its current phase as a standing committee. And why don't we just go through and we'll agree at the very end, and if there's any changes, then we can make those adjustments. Okay. Next up is the Community Relations Committee, which also encompasses budget and personnel. I would suggest that the Outreach Committee is no longer a committee, and that the Chair DeHart is appointed as a personal liaison to the Palm Springs Police Department LGBT outreach group. I will make the suggestion that Commissioner Ramaran no longer is appointed as a committee. He is the liaison for sharing calendar items of note with the commission. Same goes with Main Street, that Chair DeHart serves as a personal liaison with Main Street. And for finance, a short-lived appointment for Commissioner Vignolo. The suggestion there would be that finance just returns to the entire commission. We no longer will have a finance committee unless the commission wants to decide when it comes time in March, April, when we typically look at budget, that maybe we form ad hoc on that if needed. But I think our budget has been so straightforward that it could be something that the entire commission can deal with in one meeting, maybe 2 meetings with no problem. Commissioner Vignolo, also a short-lived appointment, but the suggestion would be for Commissioner Vignolo to serve as a liaison to 1PS and share any information of note to the whole committee based on his link to 1PS. Is everybody okay with those as we've shared them up to this point?
guess
Commissioner Monroe?
I'm trying to, I guess I'm trying to go back to the original responsibilities of the committees. Are they all being, will they all continue to be accomplished as through these liaisons or ad hocs? Or do we,
Well, I
a
think
little confused, are we eliminating the entire committee and
Sure,
all
good,
its
good.
subcommittees, or transferring responsibilities to perhaps another committee? I just don't want to take the risk that some of the responsibilities originally identified in the charter for the HRC
Yeah.
aren't continued in some fashion. If
We're
there's
going to
still
vote.
a
We're going to
problem.
vote at the end of this meeting to disband the Community Relations Committee, Budget and Personnel Committee. The responsibilities for activities that previously would have come from that committee are no longer assigned responsibilities, and we're shifting to just have liaisons with these different community activities or organizations. And the budget process is now going to be a full commission process, not a committee process. And personnel will get, personnel, we actually will address retreat down below. But yeah, I think what we're doing right now, Commissioner Vignola, is we're just saying that we will not have, or we will have, certain standing committees. And in this instance, the Community Relations Committee, Budget, Personnel are easily shifted to, get rid of that standing committee and let our commissioners serve their role as commissioners in the community with organizations that they have affinity with already. And if we find ourselves in a position where we don't have a commissioner who has an affinity with a particular community, outreach entity that we would like to have, we will then ask around on the commission, is there anybody that may, have that kind of affinity? But I think this committee is an easy one for us to reassign folks. Now, some of the others may be a little more difficult based off of your questioning.
Okay, thank you.
So the Cultural Affairs Committee, we really have, with this committee, we really have only focused on Desert Highland Gateway Estates, and that this has been for years that we've had commissioners pledge to attend those meetings, to be aware of what's happening in the community, and then share back to the commission items of interest. I think this committee can also be taken off of the standing committee list, and we have a number of commissioners who have affinity with continuing to meet or to attend the Desert Highland Gateway Estates Community Association meetings. So I think we could continue, to let our our liaisons, Flood, Shepherd, and Andrade, attend those meetings and just share, what they learned back with the commission.
Mr. Chair, I agree with that 100% because I personally have not been able to attend every meeting, but I did consider myself a liaison mainly because of proximity where I live and some of the people I've met personally and felt like that I could communicate better by showing my face and representing the commission. So I agree with that, being a liaison. I think, I'm not sure about the other two commissioners, but every chance I get, I try to be a part of what's going on in that community.
And I see Vice Chair nodding up and down. And I think the other thing that this may allow us to do, we know, if you look around the table of the commissioners, we do have association with many other groups in the community outside of the Desert Highland Gateway Estates. So I think this allows us to, let each of the commissioners share their, their experiences out in the community when we have those updates at a regular commission meeting. And we'll be able to share more information about more community organizations. Okay, senior, the next item, the next subcommittee, seniors or standing committee, seniors, people with disabilities, Veteran Affairs Committee. That too is one that I think would be very easy for us to no longer classify it as a standing committee, but since Commissioner Flood, as for the years he's been on the commission, has been a liaison on veterans issues, and we just appointed Commissioner Vignolo, that we invite them to continue to both serve as liaisons, and whether it's VFW, DAV, activities or Veterans for Peace, whatever it might be, bring that knowledge back to the commission on happenings in the community.
I concur.
And we feel
I
good
agree
about
with that.
Okay. Youth Education Affairs Committee. This is a different one that I'm not sure how we best handle it based off of what City Attorney shared with us. I'm not sure we can get away with, or not get away, if we can shift it from a standing committee to ad hoc, because to my understanding, it would not fit under an ad hoc, and we wouldn't be able to just have it as a liaison with one commissioner who's the liaison with appointed students. Am I understanding? Is that a correct understanding? Does everybody have that?
I
Jay?
think you're right. I think because it's a recurring function that every year you want this standing committee to recruit representatives from Palm Springs High School to serve as liaison.
Yeah.
That it makes sense to me that it's retain its standing committee designation.
Can I ask how often the committee meets?
Well, Ella and Lily, I don't think they really meet at all. There's just maybe a couple emails or conversations that you've had with Vice Chair Chappelle. Is that correct? If that, so we really haven't had organized students, and Ella and Lily are the first ones that we've had solid for a couple years.
Right.
And even when
I guess
even when students were on before, Jay, there was not an organized regular meeting. It was a recruitment process, and then the students would attend the meetings and share insights of what's happening within their school or activities they're involved in.
The only concern I would have is that if the emails amongst the three members continues, that would actually be a Brown Act violation. So by making some kind of a modification to the structure, that might kind of relieve the burden of that Brown Act requirement and enable the communication to continue as a group that is not a quorum. I just don't know what category that falls into.
Yeah. So,
but Jay, I think, if I may speak, I think there may be some benefit to keeping it as a standing committee and try to enhance it in terms of how often it meets, so it can perhaps focus on some of its other responsibilities. Like, I'd like to certainly offer to engage with the committee members to perhaps develop some educational programs and forums throughout the year, and that may require actual meetings of the standing committee so you can develop those programs. I think that may be something better accomplished in a formal setting than via email communications. And
yeah.
I think that's an important element of its charter, if you will, if I'm reading it correctly. I don't know if that's been done in the past because I don't know the history of the committee. If there have been educational forums and programs. I don't know.
I was just about to suggest the same thing, but also reaching out to local nonprofits like the Boys and Girls Club. They have a huge teen program that they do social justice stuff. They get grants for stuff like this, and they look for community partnerships. This would be a really good opportunity, I think, to have to kind of bring them into that, just because they're kind of looking for that outreach. And I think by staying as a standing committee and we do meetings and forums with them, that's a really good way to get these youth involved as well.
Sure.
Mhm.
I see my name has been attached to this group now that our former vice chair has gone, and I agree with what you said, Kalina, and everybody. But if I would like to find a way to make their role on the commission maybe a little bit more meaningful, a little bit more active than it has been, just to, you know, keep them engaged and feeling important. I really appreciate their attendance, but we haven't had too many actionable items or things, and I don't want to go down a dangerous path with the Brown Act or anything, but I would like to, you know, kind of stimulate their participation a little more, because I think we have a great resource there that I don't want to overlook.
Sure.
Mhm.
So it seems to me like we may have consensus that the Youth Education Affairs Committee should remain as a standing committee, and we can explore, you know, the scope of which this committee operates under through the year. But this is definitely one that we need to continue as a subcommittee so it can be explored further under proper Brown Act observation and observing those guidelines.
Does that mean I can communicate with them by email or not?
Yes, as a
The standing committee?
You can.
Okay.
Vice Chair, you inherited that role. It wasn't one that you volunteered for.
And that's fine.
But
That's fine.
But it, you know, if one of the newer commissioners would like to step into that role, you know, Kalina, it sounded like you had, or sorry, Commissioner Robles, it sounded like you had, you know, affinity there. Commissioner Vignolo, you have affinity. So maybe we can, you know, just look at it and maybe explore appointing somebody new, you know, to it.
I don't see Kalina's name on too many line items here, and I loved her ideas. So could she be a co-person with me or some such thing until she's ready to take it on herself?
Yeah, that one actually I can, you know, I could take it and fly if you want out of your hands. Actually, that was the one I wanted. I think my email was left in the drafts, but
Okay.
that was the one I was hoping to be on. If you would like.
Right.
Yeah.
The universe does provide.
Yes, it does. Manifestation.
Yeah, thank you. So Jay, you know, in the past, we very informally have assigned commissioners. Do we have to have a vote, or can we informally continue assigning to serve in as either liaisons or the standing committees?
That's a good question. I'm actually not sure if it's a, you know, a firm part of the commission structure. I would think a vote would be necessary, but in that, you know, these are, and I've seen the council do this, and they actually assign members to subcommittees and committees, and then they vote on it. So that would probably be the safe route, and we could probably agendize it and do all this at the next meeting as we clean up and confirm the direction we're going here. I do want to say, though, that Vice Chair Shepherd, the emails may very well be similar to the emails for all of you, where we ask you to send an email to me and I will distribute that to the rest of the group. So it just sounds really restrictive, but we'll see how it goes.
It's
Yeah,
our government saving us from ourselves.
Thanks for that clarification, Jay. Yeah, okay, I think that's good guidance from Jay. If everybody else is in agreement, we will move forward and bring that back as an agenda item for next month, and we will appoint commissioners to serve on that committee.
Great.
The next one is the Commission Development Mediation Committee. This is one where we have not had to have an active role in, as a committee, other than several commissioners have undergone training in mediation. I don't know, Jay, how training falls in under these guidelines, but it seems to me like this doesn't need to be a standing committee, that the mediation people can be independent, certified mediators that could get appointed if anything came forward to the commission.
I would agree with that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And then retreat, I think we can or the suggestion would be maybe we handle that as a commission. And we have not had annual retreats. So it's not an annual reoccurring thing. We have had study sessions to look at certain things. So I would not see that we would need a standing committee for retreat planning. That could be something we could do at the full commission.
Or, Chair, I might suggest that that's maybe something an executive committee takes ownership of.
Good idea. Good. Yes.
Because you kind of set the tone.
Thank you for giving us more work. Thank you.
But I mean, you could certainly request ad
That's fine.
hoc members join your executive committee to help facilitate the planning of a retreat when you decide you want to hold one.
Do we have agreement that that's a good suggestion? Okay, then we will shift retreat under executive committee, which is staying as a standing committee. And then these, I think, are ad hoc. The item B. These are items that come to us on a temporary basis, that there is an end in sight, hopefully. Jay, would you define these as ad hoc committees, the street naming work, and then also the clean indoor air draft ordinance review that we participate in?
Definitely the clean indoor air, as that would probably have a certain life. Street naming may go on. It may be something that gets looked at in different circumstances. So I'm not sure if that would best be suited, because those opportunities are hard to predict. So I'm not sure if that would be better as remaining as a committee, or if it becomes more of a representative or liaison role. But I know there's a meeting coming up. So the schedule's going back and forth. And so, that's with another of our staff members who knows this, and the committee members are going to be meeting with them, but this is not a meeting that will take place very often. It's probably a one-time meeting. So as they move forward, as the opportunities come forward, they bring it forward. It's just hard to know if that should be kept as a committee, an ad hoc committee, or some other form.
So if I'm remembering right, we were given a specific task by City Council to address street naming for 3 specific streets. I think it's 3. it wasn't an open-ended request from council. It was to look at those naming of the streets. And if council gives us direction for a specific, for specific direction, would we not be able to count that as ad hoc if it's to look at specific street names?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would agree with you in that case. I wasn't actually sure if it was specifically for 3 streets or to continue looking at opportunities for renaming streets. So
we can go back and look at it. I think we as a commission may have supported the thought process of looking at a bigger picture. But the other thing that may come from this is this may end up residing with the social justice group. So maybe we can offer to or invite them to take it on. And then we could serve as a liaison to that group, perhaps, and it no longer would be an ad hoc for us or a standing committee.
Thank you. That's a great recommendation.
Okay, so everybody feel good about those two? So what do we have to act on here? Oh, so the motion would be, we would need to entertain a motion to no longer hold standing committees for the community relations, community budget, personnel, cultural affairs, seniors, people with disabilities and veteran affairs, and Commission Development Mediation Committee. We will shift responsibilities for retreat, planning and organization to the executive committee. Period. Is that correct? Is that how everybody is understanding it?
Yes,
And
Mr.
possibly, I think, expand the membership of the Youth Education Affairs Committee.
That's going to be
To make
another
it more
agenda.
robust.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if we're voting now, I think it would be appropriate to address the Youth Education Affairs Committee now. So I'm sorry, I may have misspoke with agendizing it for the future, if we know what it's going to be at this point. Yeah.
Okay, so the motion that we will entertain is, as I've stated, in addition to moving retreat responsibilities to the executive committee, we will appoint Commissioner Robles to serve with, and also appoint formally Vice Chair Shepherd to serve on the Youth Education Affairs Standing Committee. I think that was it. Did we capture everything? All right, who wants to so move that motion?
Can I just, can you add me to that committee? Because I have connections with the Boys and Girls Club as well. So I think, and I guess it doesn't preclude any committee member from participating just as, or attending a standing committee meeting, right? You don't have to be a member of a standing committee to attend its meeting.
I think that's where you cross some fine line on.
You can attend, but you can't participate.
Yeah.
Isn't the public allowed to comment at the standing committee?
Well, you're a public and a member of the commission. And just as an example, we have 2 city council members who are committee members, but there's times where a third will participate in one of their committees, but they're not allowed to speak. Otherwise, that's basically a city council meeting. So in that case, they actually achieve quorum, but still, even if it's just they want to be careful not to breach that rule.
Oh, okay.
But we could have 3 though, Jay, or we shouldn't have 3.
Yes, we can add them. I'm just saying if it's,
Or if the two of them feel strongly, I can step out and he can just take my place.
No, you could just add, I mean, we can have six
However
members
however
of
you
the
like.
committee, right? Am I making this too complicated? You could have a standing committee chaired by Vice Chair Shepherd or co-chaired by Vice Chair Shepherd and Commissioner Robles, with members being Ella Cash, myself, and Lily Hanner. No?
yeah, I believe you can.
That's all I would.
And we've kept it very easy in past years, so we haven't made it a complicated process for interpretation. But we have had 3 representatives on a committee. So if we're not in violation of that, Jay, then I think we can include in the motion to appoint Commissioner Vignolo to the Youth Education Affairs Committee, along with Vice Chair and Commissioner Robles.
I agree. I think that would be actually easier than kind of noting he's in the audience all the time.
Yeah, okay. All right, so anything,
Thank you.
does anybody feel we have any, where we omitted anything? I thought I went down the list.
I'm not sure when it would be appropriate to say this, but I do believe this was my last meeting today because I will be moving to Los Angeles in a few days.
Well, now you took the thunder out of our goodbye party at the end of the meeting. It's perfectly fine that you mentioned that, but has no effect on what we're doing in this motion, Ella. There's going to be student representatives, and whether it's yourself or another student, there's always student representatives there. So we'll get back to your service when we're done with this motion, okay? All right, so we need to entertain a motion from the commission to bring to an end the standing committees of Community Relations Committee, Budget Personnel Committee, Cultural Affairs Committee, Seniors and People with Disabilities, Veterans Affairs Committee, and Commission Development Mediation Committee, with responsibilities of retreat planning and development being assigned to the Executive Committee, and Youth Education Affairs Committee appointing Commissioners Robles, Vignolo, and Vice Chair Shepherd to serve on that committee.
Perfect. I make that motion.
Commissioner Vignolo moves, seconded by,
I
I
second.
second it. Okay.
who was that? Commissioner Flood was the one I heard, so Commissioner Flood second. Do we have any other discussion on what seems complicated, but I think we handled it very swiftly. No discussion. All in favor of adopting the motion as stated? Raise your
Aye.
hands. Aye. That's unanimous, Jay. Okay. Thank you for that. And we will move on to item 9C. And that's consideration of submitting priorities and areas of focus for the City Council visioning session. A long statement of what we need to do, but I think it's really simple. We just need to come up with 2, I think is the recommendation, priorities for the commission going into 22, early 23 perhaps. So it sounds like it's a bigger task than what it may be. And what I would invite folks to look at, and everybody had this in our packets, so you're a little familiar with what we're being asked to do. In prior years, we would really, we do this. We would look at annual topics or a couple topics that we're going to focus on. Seniors rights was one that we picked up a couple years back. And we also looked at education forms through the presenting educational movies. That was something that we worked on for some time. So I think what we want to look at here is, where do we see the commission could best support city council and city council's work in the next year and a half. And we always try to be in that role. We're here to support city council. And this is donkey before the horse or chicken before the egg type of a thing. Council is not going into their goal setting process, for some time, but I think they're going to take this information that we present along with the other commissions, and they'll at least have that for where we see there being a way that we could support and assist them in two areas of focus. Does that make sense? To sum up, what we're really trying to do. So, we can, I'll jot down notes, but, are there topics that come to mind right away that you think the commission should really be focused on, in the coming year and a half, maybe even 2 years?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Can you hear me? That may not be right in this category, but has the Human Rights Commission ever advised or played an advisory role for the city council on the appointment of a police chief? Since that's something that's starting, I guess, is in the process right now, which I don't have any details on other than what I've read and what the city council is proposing to do. We have an acting chief now that Chief Reyes is gone, and of course the role of police, public safety, I think, is part of our Human Rights Commission goals in a way. You have any comment on that?
I don't know previously, and we are 50 years old, and there's been a few police chiefs during that time period. I don't know if the commission has played a role in those processes. And Jay, I'm not sure if you're aware of any involvement.
I'm not aware of the commission specifically playing a role. I know, as you've seen, there's the community listening sessions where they want to hear from people. I don't know if that's a role for this commission to help out with in terms of guiding and maybe kind of directing those discussions, or at least participating and identifying characteristics that would be important for the community. But that's a really good recommendation. But I don't know of historically if the commission has played that role.
Yeah.
Well, it's more of a question. I wasn't saying that we should do it. I'm just wondering if it has been done. Maybe we should step up and try to do it again. Or just start it.
Yeah, and it certainly would fall under our directive from rules and procedures of what the commission does, and that's to help bring diversity to all departments within the city. So, if nothing else, maybe we can extend a request to be invited to be involved in the process to city manager's office. And like Jay was saying, if it's, is there a committee organizing these talking sessions? What are the next steps that they're going to go through? Maybe there's a role from somebody on the commission to serve and assist there. Okay. Other thoughts on priority focus? Vice Chair Shepherd.
I feel strongly that we should support the City Council in their efforts with the new Equity and Social Justice Committee. It's taken some time to get off the ground, but I think that race relations are going to continue to be an issue that needs to be addressed over the next, well, unfortunately, probably the rest of our lives, but it's a hot topic for Palm Springs right now and many other cities throughout the country. And I feel that if I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission and I don't take that as one of my primary responsibilities, I feel like I'm kind of missing the boat.
Mhm.
So I don't know what that would look like to add energy to that, to add support to that. I know 2 commissioners are already assigned, Mr. Ramaran and I, to that committee, but how we could support, enhance, fund, move that along in any way, I think is very important.
Mhm. Okay, I've got that written down as a subject.
Can I
Other
just-
thoughts?
Just kind of to expand on Commissioner or Vice Chair Shepherd's comments, because I agree with her, but I also think a priority of the Human Rights Commission itself going forward should be coming up, preparing and disseminating our own materials and information that can help reduce prejudice, discrimination, educate people about what human rights are and how they apply in the city of Palm Springs. I'd like to suggest that perhaps be a priority of the Human Rights Commission going forward. I don't know if that's something that's been done in the past, but I'd see that as independent of the other commissions, but would assist them in their execution of their responsibilities as well.
Sure.
So,
And I think that is education is something we are charged with.
mhm.
So that is a duty that rests with the commission. But I think let's continue to take down these thoughts and ideas, because we're being asked to focus. The Human Rights Commission, it is not feasible that this commission can deliver all the things that it is asked to do in the guiding code that was established for the commission. It's just not feasible. So we have a purpose today that is the scope is too wide for our abilities to deliver. And what we're being asked to do by the city manager now is really understand that that's true, that that's reality for our commission. And how can we pick 2 areas of focus that we feel we will best help the city council going forward and serve our role as the Human Rights Commission. So let's keep thinking along those lines. We've got, somehow, some way of supporting, shepherding, not because Vice Chair Shepherd said it, but shepherding the Equity Social Justice Committee, having a firm role in race relations, continuing to serve in our role of education within the community on a myriad of subjects that would fall under human rights. What else? What else comes to mind?
Well, can I just to clarify, is it, if I'm reading the matrix right, they're looking for 1 or 2 ongoing priorities and 1 or 2 new priorities. And I might suggest that what Vice Chair Shepherd was speaking to might be one of our new priorities. And what I was referring to is probably an ongoing priority that we should have in our matrix if you're trying to come up with, 2 of each. So making that distinguish the two priorities, one being ongoing, one being a new one.
Yep, good observation. Ella, what about from a youth perspective? Lily's saying, you know, from a youth perspective, where do you see things, where do you see next year going from, you know, a human rights standpoint? And, you know, from your time on the commission, where do you think we could best contribute? Where do you think the city council is going to be going next year? What are going to be their high priorities?
I think the city and the commission should listen more to like the general youth population of the city, like rather than just us two, because there's a selection bias of who's choosing to join the commission or, you know, putting themselves in a position where they can be heard versus just kids, you know, at the high school that might have something to say or might not know where to voice those things. So just speaking with a larger group of students, I would say, is probably something we should look to do.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, Lily, I think you froze on us.
I believe Commissioner Ramaran also has his hand up, Mr. Chair.
Oh, my gosh, I didn't see it. Sorry. Yeah, Commissioner Ramaran.
Yeah, thank you, Chair DeHart. I actually had my hand up, and I'm trying to figure out if I'm trying to be respectful of time as well, but I've had my hand up for a while, so I'm just letting you know if people are speaking out of turn, I'm not going to say anything. So I'm just letting you know.
Yeah,
And when we couldn't see your hand.
Your
We could
hand
not
is
see it.
very against the
You
backdrop.
have to go
I
like this.
can't
Is it
see
too-
your
is it
hand
too brown
against
for
the
y'all?
backdrop. So
Yeah,
it was
We
certainly,
couldn't see it.
I'm actually going to put in response to Commissioner Flood's question earlier, and I appreciate that question because Denise Goolsby did send out the survey. There's a community survey around the selection of the police chief in Palm Springs. So I'm going to put that in the chat so that everyone gets that. Make sure you do get the emails from Denise or whomever at the city, because she's providing some amazing information, including ways for us to provide input. If it's not on a commission basis, but on an individual basis, that way we're, we're being responsible as residents of Palm Springs. So that's the one survey. In the chat, it says the city of Palm Springs is asking residents to weigh in on the selection of the city's next chief of police. Please take this short survey and let us know what qualities, characteristics, and experiences are most important when evaluating candidates for the top job in the city's police department. And we definitely want to welcome interim police chief Demarais to the role currently. And I just wanted to respond to Commissioner Flood's question earlier, and I don't know if that necessarily, but I know that was a question of whether or not our commission as a body has worked on that. And I think I'm just going to mention it here because we did go to the student representatives. We know that this is a very important subject matter because it was in the news about whether or not police would remain on the campuses of the Palm Springs Unified School District, and it was a big conversation that we should definitely be addressing here in some form or fashion, so that we are again responsive to our community, or to our school board, and to our public safety. This is I think those are going to be some of the biggest issues that are going to come up. And I think this is in response to your question, Chair DeHart. What are the priorities of our commission? And yes, I think we need to look at policing and public safety as one of the things that we have to think about in terms of the human rights, impetus that we have. So I'm very happy to put that forward as well and support that conversation. Thank you.
so policing has been noted by several people. Other areas of focus.
I wonder if it's time to talk about a living wage for the city of Palm Springs. We have hundreds of hospitality jobs open, nobody wanting to fill them. And I'm sure everybody is up to speed on the resignation crisis that we've got going on. And it all comes back down to working conditions and pay. And I think San Francisco, Santa Monica, many places, and even in Orange County have done a good job of that. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I'm so distressed. If the minimum wage had kept pace with inflation over the last 30, 40 years, the minimum wage today would be $26 an hour. And it's 15, and there are some industries that have loopholes that they can get around it for less. I think it's just borderline criminal if we're talking about people in poverty and everything else, that we continue to pay those sad wages.
Yep. Okay. So I think living wage is a subcomponent of the bigger item of maybe what, like you said, working conditions and pay and health, access to healthcare. So that may be a bigger topic where living wage could fall under. What else we have? Other thoughts that are coming to mind?
What's the timeline on this priority matrix, and when do you have to narrow it down to the one or two priorities?
No.
Now?
But either we do it tonight or we're going to meet again in the next week. But it is due. Jay, what is the due date to city manager? It's due.
I believe it is mid-October, early to
mid-October.
mid-October. Yeah.
Okay. So there could be an opportunity to meet again, but keep in mind we're meeting on the 29th and we will meet again on the second Monday in October. So I think let's keep throwing thoughts out there. I think one area that the city council is going to continue to be focused on for several years, and that's the homelessness topic. So I think that's going to be a huge area of focus of our city council. Another area that we've brought forward several months ago was, I think we brought forward, where we talked about it, is how can the commission work with the city manager and the HR department on establishing the city's diversity, equity, and inclusion policies throughout its policies and procedures, and that's a huge role that we could play, and it's starting at ground zero. That for all of our city operations and policies.
Is it true that the Personnel Commission has been done away with, Jay? Is that commission gone now?
It seems like they are gone. I haven't confirmed, but I have definitely not heard of the Personnel Commission doing anything active in the last year at least. So,
okay. Based on what you just said, Ron, if there's some way that we could maybe take a look at the, like you said, the personnel practices, HR practices. I haven't even seen a city handbook. I don't know what our union avoidance campaign is. I don't know what our wage scale look like. And if the city is managing one of the bigger operations in the city, I think it would be good to maybe at least have some awareness or maybe input on some of those things.
And when we inquired a number of months back to the city manager's office, our inquiry was received well. and that we were welcome to be involved in the process, which really is starting fresh. It's a blank piece of paper, so the hand was extended to us. But I think, if we look at priorities, there is no, we don't have the diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in place. So, that is a big thing. That's a big thing that we could have a role in, and the door's been open there. So it's not like there's going to be, have to twist people's arms, but the door's been open to invite us to sit at that table. So could be a good one for us. What else? If we had crystal balls, what have we seen our city council focusing on?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to add, I was looking at the police chief survey just now, and I'm not sure if this would be a human rights issue, but I think something I've noticed is a lot of surveys, just generally speaking, but I think especially ones done by the city, should be more inclusive when asking about race or ethnicity, because obviously, the most important, like the majority, minorities, and everything would be included when asking, but there wasn't even another option on the survey just now for if somebody didn't fall under any of those categories. So I think especially official surveys should be more inclusive.
Okay.
Yes, I had the same concern. I just opened it, and I'm actually mixed race. So when I went down, I was like, I've only got to choose one. So
Right.
yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, personally, I think there's a better way than clicking the other tab, but I mean, even an other tab would have done the job for this.
Agree 100%.
And that certainly, to me, assisting in bringing that level of awareness would fall under a DEI working group within the city to raise that level of awareness of making sure that there's inclusion in surveys that may be prepared, whether they're prepared internally or we borrow them from the mainstream, that we can modify those mainstream surveys to be more inclusive. So yeah, good points.
Sure. It sounds like some of these, what people have spoken about, are perhaps the measures of success that you can assign to the bigger priorities. Because it sounds like we got a lot, just listening, there were a lot of great ideas. I'm not sure they're all actual priorities. I think they're measurements of success at meeting the priorities. For example, the survey, if you could get the survey modified to address the concerns that Ella and Kalina brought to our attention, that's probably a measurement of the success of making things more, inclusive, the priority being to address it at a higher level. So I think you might consider, when you're doing the matrix, bundling it a little differently to have a bigger priority with more specific measures of success.
Sure, I think you're right on. We're still just gathering big topic subjects, and then I think once we, I think if we get a good assortment of big topic issues, then maybe we can narrow it down, maybe into a major issue and then some subcategories as you're speaking. We do have some big issues already. Big big issues with social equity, the social justice committee, race relations. How do we, how do we put an arm around that? Which is just massive. But then we've got the working conditions and pay, living wage, access to healthcare, working with to establish the diversity, equity, inclusion policies and standards throughout the city of Palm Springs. Big one, that's huge. And huge is homelessness. So those are all some really big topics that, falling in within them, there could be lots of other avenues that we would certainly be expected to be involved in as a Human Rights Commission. But what other thoughts? I look at, if we're gonna work and spend time, energy, and effort, how can we help further the work that the city council is doing, instead of trying to come up with something new that falls outside of the scope where they're going to be focused. How can we go down the road that we can assist with what their top priorities are going to be? And I think, I would suspect that a lot of what we've just shared, some of these key topics, are going to be top priority items for City Council in some fashion or another. So any other thoughts, other areas, what about housing? Housing is I think is going to continue to be a big issue. Affordable housing, not just housing in general, but access to affordable housing. That comes back to your living wage. And I think, so housing, affordable housing, just that topic alone, and then what impact could we have? So then I think that's the other thing for us to consider is, what impact can we really have on any one of these items that we're speaking of? Now, Commissioner Rummer, I see your hand this time.
I changed it to white so you can see.
No, it looks tan. It looks like mine.
It's the whitest on the skin tones.
Oh, it is. Wow.
I'm glad you brought up housing, Chair DeHart, and a living wage, Vice Chair Shepherd. There's one word that doesn't get spoken about a lot, and I think this is where, and I'm glad this conversation is happening. I know it's 7 o'clock, it's after 7 now, but we don't talk about gentrification in Palm Springs. And I think that's one of the things, and I think people are very afraid of talking about gentrification because, one, the conversations around short-term rentals, for instance, it is about like sort of a class stratification, right? Where folks who can rent out their home will rent out their home and make that money, right? But the reality is a lot of our families and a lot of in my family, for instance, have moved out of Palm Springs because they couldn't, they sold their homes and they moved to Cathedral City and got something bigger. Or something, or they left Palm Springs. You see this flight of like working class brown and black families because they can't afford to live here. So I think gentrification is definitely one of the things that I think our city is afraid to speak about, but I think will be on the horizon in terms of this conversation of what it brings together all these conversations of homelessness and living wage. How can you own in the city when there's a checkerboard of land ownership, those things, that conversation, our conversation with the tribe, the Agua Caliente band of Kauai Indians, that conversation is something that I think we avoid mainly because there's this very binary city of like, we've got city council and we've got the tribal council. When do we get those opportunities to really build those bridges? And I'm hoping that's one of the things that we can do here.
So to me, I would see that the whole topic of gentrification falls under the affordable housing conversation. That is all part of the picture. It's not, why do we have to be concerned about affordable housing? It's because of all the things you just mentioned, or many of the things you just mentioned. But is there the last part of your comment is there an objective there that can be identified on how does the Human Rights Commission help? What role would we have in bridging two parties like the city council and the tribe? What's that? What if you could identify the objective there? What is that objective? What would the task be?
I think that personally, I'll say this straight up because like my family does work for the casinos. That's one. There is an interdependence of like folks who are, for instance, the Filipino communities in Eastern Palm Springs or Southeastern Palm Springs who work in the casinos, and they've been working there for a while. I think Commissioner Loyola mentioned, Hispanic Heritage Month, and we also have that real strong relationship with agriculture, the relationship of agriculture in the Valley, and the history of labor in this town has been founded on the backs of Black and brown, working class families. So we have to really think of how, the history of, and this is where it's great because it all comes like full circle, right? The conversation around Section 14 is a huge conversation that is it's ongoing. It's legacy, actually. Let's talk about, and we're going to talk about it, I know, on the 29th, and I'm hoping, we get some clarity before the 29th because I'm wanting to make sure that, we can come out of this because this has divided the city. You saw it. You're seeing the division of like folks who want to keep a statue versus ones who want to say, oh, we're just supporting the legacy of someone who's been a leader in our city. This is a real issue, right? Like, and everyone's involved. But like the reality is those bridges of communication are sort of only like this is where we talk about it. We were talking about it here on Zoom. We haven't been able to sit down and like literally be in a room together and talk about it. It's actually on Zoom. It's mediated through this sort of professional distance, which is great. We need that professional distance, and I'm glad we are streamlining, what's happening with the committees, for instance, because we want to be able to work better for our city and make, so that our conversations could have a greater impact. So I guess I'm getting at is that, if there's something comes out of what's happening today, for instance, which I'm glad the streamlining is happening because I think you've spoken about it many times, Chair DeHart, like a lot of things don't happen overnight, change doesn't happen overnight. A lot of things happen, the clean indoor air ordinance that I've been working on as a liaison, that conversation's been going on for a couple of years, and it always goes back and forth between committees. So there is a level of like Commissioner Vignola, like I'm glad you say it because we need to really look at how it is not just about the big issues, but literally how do we work as a government agency to work stronger and better for our constituencies, so that we can deliver. It doesn't take 2 years to have a clean air ordinance. So that, I don't know. I'm really worried about this level of like, we have these big topics, but we don't know how we can communicate better, or how or we're just not communicating better. I guess that's one of the things I'm looking for. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm totally being.
I think the Commissioner Ramaran has just, for me, identified what I think is the number one priority for 2022 is for this commission to figure out how to foster those conversations. That's the number one priority. And the topic of the conversations, I think, is the secondary part of it. But if you're looking to go back to the city manager and say, our number one priority for 2022 is that the Human Rights Commission is going to come up with a process for fostering multiple conversations with multiple groups in the city of Palm Springs. That's a big project. But I think it's a valid project that fits into the powers and duties that the code identifies for this commission. Then at a lower level, we'll figure out what conversational topics we want to focus on. But to meet the charge of this direction from the city manager, I think you've just identified, Commissioner Ramaran, what to me is the number one priority going forward for this commission. That's my opinion. Thank you. I'm just trying to boil it down to fulfill your priority matrix assignment.
Yeah. So that certainly is an ongoing priority. That's what we're charged with now. So figuring out how to have that conversation is something that we clearly can be charged with. So if we take that as an ongoing,
Okay.
I don't know if I can't put my finger on what's the objective, the one or two objectives that will get us to come close to fulfilling that ongoing priority.
When you say objective, is that synonymous with measures of success?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So what could we say? What could we do that can help bridge this absence that Commissioner Ramaran is sharing with us, and the aggravation that you clearly can hear, and the scope isn't this big. Just listening to Commissioner Ramaran, the scope is huge. So how do we boil it down to a role that the commission can have with 9 commissioners, one who's been absent for 3 meetings, I believe, and that it's achievable. So, with that ongoing, which is a good ongoing one that we might want to, we've got it written down here. So that may be one of our ongoings, but we've got to look at how do we fulfill that charge? So actually ongoing would be, quite a bit of what we've said could really be classified as ongoing. So are there new areas of priorities? New areas of priorities. That's an interesting way to ask the question, because our charge is so broad. I think everything we've talked about today follows under the charge that we already have. So is there,
well, I think maybe one of the new or emerging topics that may be critical for the Human Rights Commission to address in 2022 would be, could be looking at how do we assist the city council in addressing things like the homelessness issue and affordable housing in terms of bringing those affected communities into the conversation. Getting some ideas from them as to how could we include them? How can we ensure that their human rights are being addressed as solutions to those emerging topics are developed? I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but it's a little.
Yeah, so when the minute I said, or as I was looking at the list of my notes on things that we've talked about, and when we look at ongoing priorities versus something that may be a new area, and yes, it could be under our charge somewhere in the words in our pages of guidance, but I think that it's that gentrification subject and the affordable housing. So to me, I think that would be one of the priority issues that we could identify as new. It certainly isn't something that we've worked on in 6 years, and I don't know, and previously to that. So maybe somehow we could shape that affordable housing gentrification conversation, and then we've had a role in homelessness, and when the mayor served on the commission, there was a couple people that served on that standing committee and issued the homelessness report out of the Human Rights Commission. So we have addressed it for a long time, but we've found not necessarily aggravation, but we found that there was really no role that we could move something forward in serving with the task force that was established. I think the homelessness solutions are moving forward in the city and at different levels. It's just, if that was a priority for us to work with city council on, how would we even see our role there and not get in a position where we're not contributing to the outcome? That it's beyond us, that it's beyond our scope, it's beyond our reach. We can't be that problem solver on that topic. Or what is our role?
Mr. Chair, just a couple observations. It's great conversation. But you keep mentioning the homelessness, affordable housing, and gentrification. Part of the problem that I see is the gentrification leads to increasing rents. Individuals get priced out of their units in their homes. And, there's a period where you struggle as that individual to find where your next living location is going to be, or you become homeless. And so, it is kind of related to that, to the success of Palm Springs being an attractive place where landlords can, within the law, raise their rents and increase the cost of living for individuals who, for many years until this phenomenon has kind of come around. I don't know if it's a Airbnb phenomena or just a rental phenomena that it's starting to price people out. And so I guess, it's just really interesting to hear the keying in on gentrification impacting individuals who have no equity in the community, no assets to rely on that grow with time and match they're increasing their wealth. So I don't know if there's areas to make that happen. I think I've heard some communities have implemented their own cryptocurrency. I don't know if that's an effort to give equity to individuals who are maybe long-term residents or such, but I don't know if that's something even to be evaluated. It's just kind of crazy, actually, but maybe it works.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
interesting.
So where's that put us? I don't know if you help me focus more, Jay.
Nope, I'm sorry.
You got me. So the housing, area of focus. How could we focus on that? And I always go back to try to think forward as to where's the council going to go? Because if they're going one direction and we say we're going to go another direction, what are we going to accomplish? We're much better off to think if the direction council's going, and then figure out what is our role in that direction. And I think, whoops, dog just knocked the cord out. The direction, we're better off going in a direction where we can contribute to real-time action of city council. And I think that gets us back to, we have identified one core area that is pretty broad in scope, and that's the housing and gentrification, STR conversation, living wage. So where could we see us? And that's clearly the city council is going to have to be going that direction. Do we agree on that?
Yeah.
I can't imagine they're not going to be addressing those topics, and homelessness. Homelessness is going to be a big topic,
Very huge topic.
going forward. So we're how do we boil down some of this big thought that we've had, and can we bring it down to two core areas where we think we can contribute as a priority. We don't know where that priority is going to take us or what our task would be, but this is the core area that we think we can be focused on. And we're not being asked to state, what are those specific steps we're going to take, and we're not being asked that yet. So we're being asked, what is that priority, and why are we thinking that's going to be a priority for this year?
Mr. Chair, let me also add, a lot of the city council decisions come down to that vote when they're up there hearing testimony from both sides. And I think in line with what Commissioners Vignolo and Ramaran have been saying about communication, maybe a role for the Human Rights Commission can be amplifying the voices of those who may not have as strong of a voice, such as the homeless individuals, making sure their stories are heard, and communication with those who are maybe the NIMBYs and saying, we don't want this in a neighborhood. And I think helping to quell that conflict would definitely be something the council would appreciate.
Okay. Is anybody
That
else?
was well said. That was well said.
I think that can help. That can help narrow down what we've been talking about, and area of focus. I think area of focus is better to say than priority, new priority, because it's we've already said, our commission is very broad in what we're supposed to be doing. So I would like to focus more on the area of focus, and one area of focus that has been a big part of our conversation tonight is the human rights role in raising awareness and educating the community at large on issues of importance. We're not identifying that issue of importance, but I think that it's very broad in scope. And if you listen to Commissioner Ramaran for 2 minutes, you're going to hear 30 issues come out of him. So maybe that's a suggestion that I'm making, is that that we area of focus is ongoing education to raise awareness of the issues are facing our community or something, and it's not defined. We're not saying it's all about homelessness. We're not saying it's about living wage or housing, but it's saying we want to have a role, whether that role's in front of city council meetings, like Jay said, so we can give testimony, which could be a great role for us to give, to bring a different perspective to city council. When topics come up, certainly is a big charge for this commission. If you watch the city council meetings, they're not short, but it takes a commitment. But I think that could be a good area. What's the thought?
Agree.
So
Can
maybe
you restate it? Can you restate what you just, the area of focus?
So one area of focus, our new area of focus would be
Okay.
on the ongoing education to raise awareness of issues. Oh, I see a hand up again in the background. I get you, Edwin. To raise awareness of issues facing our community, something along those lines. Commissioner Amran?
I'd like to, that's really worded really nicely, Chair DeHart. I also want to do a little, I know we always do this with a sort of history lesson around the founding of this commission too. There's a real sense that the charge of this commission was founded to really protect the, a sexual minority too, for instance. Like when we look at in 1992, when the commission was first founded, we were looking at the protection of a sexual minority, in particular gay men in Palm Springs. So I'm thinking that if we have a charge here that we could put as a focus, is that we do continue the protection of underclasses or the most vulnerable. And I think that's one of the things that we're looking at. We're looking, we don't have the hate crimes stuff on our website for just any reasons, because we are looking specifically at the fact that hate crimes are being directed at very specific classes of people and groups and races and historic sexual minorities as well. So I think we need to look at that kind of like history as again refocusing where this has been founded, but also reinvigorating it, because the reality is we're going to have if this happens, we may have our first transgender mayor in Palm Springs. So there's a real level of like, hey, we're going to be an epicenter of discussion around transgender rights. And we need to, protect those who are, again, most vulnerable in our community. So I'm looking at that as sort of one way to sort of even look at the history of how this commission was founded. I'm totally talking off the cuff. This is just based on, the research that we've been given in terms of the history of the commission as well. I don't know if that helps in any way, but sort of reinvigorates something that this commission was founded on.
I'll just throw out one last possible area of focus that occurred to me listening to Commissioner Ramaran. For this committee going forward, which I think would be new, is for the commission to focus on coming up on civility in all discussions. So that's very broad, but my thought is the commission coming up with ways to get diverse groups to engage in conversation civilly. I think whether it's political discussions or discussions around gentrification, sexual minorities, healthcare. I don't think we haven't really talked about healthcare, and the disparities in that area, but I think maybe that could be a focus of the commission to come up with some tools or have or host forums that brings diverse groups and kind of moderates them and gets the temperature down so maybe we can talk civilly to each other and humanly to each other. I'm trying to bring us all back to this whole human rights. I mean, if we start treating people as human beings, no matter what the topic, maybe we can collectively come up with solutions. So just some thoughts. I know it's getting late and we're getting all tired, but
Sounds like mediation.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah, maybe
it's,
that's our
it's
role.
exactly what I was thinking is it does fall under our charge of mediation, but also it goes back to education and awareness,
Yeah.
and you know, create and you know, maybe that education and awareness is what you were saying is maybe it is forums that, you know, it is hosting you know, public forums to you know, discuss topics, you know, difficult conversations. But to me, that falls under ongoing education to raise awareness
Okay.
of issues facing the communities, and we're not identifying what that is, but
Right.
we certainly would have to come back and at some point we're going to have to say, okay, well, how are we going to do this? You know, if this is our focus area, how are we going to focus our energies for the year on that area? And you know, I know the city manager is asking us for 2, Jay, but do we have to give 2? Because I think the danger there is we already put too much work on our plate, and if we do 2, I just don't see us being able to accomplish 2 massive priorities.
I believe he limited it to 2 because he'd like to see as few as possible. So 1 may work out very well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How do others feel about not focusing on 2, but to list 1?
I feel like we ought to at least have one for the ongoing and one for the new, if possible,
Yeah, agreed.
at least.
Yeah, and we you know, we got a lot that we can pick from on the ongoing. You know, I think being able to have a role if in 2021, 2022, the folks on this body can say we can walk away from a year or 2 years worth of work saying that we were involved at the ground floor on establishing DEI policies and procedures for the city of Palm Springs. I think that's something that is tangible. It impacts a lot of people. You know, so and that would be under our ongoing of working with community, you know, I mean, departments and other commissions. So that, to me, that would be an ongoing thing where if we formally are working with city manager's office to establish those policies and implementing the language throughout the city hall culture. Massive project. And you know, you all know that. But that would be an ongoing one. You know, race relations, you know, going back to our involvement with the social justice, you know, committee, you know, that's ongoing. And we have 2 representatives sitting there. You know, if we could put our finger on what more could we do that we could say, you know, we want to have a bigger voice there. I think we've already gotten 2 seats. So I'm not sure with that one. I think the police chief is short term. You know, that process, you know, is it going to go on for 6 months? I sure hope not. But that's going to be a short process. That's not going to be a long-term thing for us to look at. But policing, you know, the policing in our city and the police budgets and where funding is allocated. Well, that certainly is ongoing. But doesn't that fall under our social justice, committee? And what, how could we have a role there for ongoing? Others thoughts on what those ongoing priorities could be, or our ongoing areas of focus could be?
Sounds like you got a lot of ongoings, as you said, right?
Yeah, so how would we narrow it down? Because
You
we take on too much, and we know that. So how can we narrow it down to the one or two that says, this is what we're really going to make as our priority, and some things are just going to have to go in the parking lot, and we're not going to be able to address because we've got to hit our priority first.
Ron, I think that everybody kind of understands and agrees the general direction we want to go. I think the hard work is your artful use of the English language and boiling them down into, a small point with a priority, a rationale, and a measure of success. I think we kind of know what we want to do, and I'd be willing to, work with you. I'm sure Hugo would as well, to try and just capture all of this and get it on paper.
Well, we still do have an executive standing committee. Oh, but we can't, we have to agendize it.
Can we talk to each other? Well, maybe we can just have a meeting that the agenda is 2021-22 priority matrix, and that's the only agenda item.
Okay, Jay, if normally we would leave today and one or two of us would craft, summarize the comments that were made in tonight's meeting, are we allowed to do that?
You mean
without taking any action, just summarizing comments that were made that then could be circled out to the commission at an agendized meeting to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In fact, I think we've done that with the housing element language where, everybody contributed and came together into one document by a smaller group and then was recirculated.
Okay. Does everybody feel comfortable going that direction? We probably will have to schedule a special meeting, maybe not, depending on how well we can move a shared document forward. Okay, that will be our charge.
Would it help you, Chair, to have each commissioner fill out the priority matrix or attempt to, and then kind of give you our thoughts in that format so that you can
Sure. Who does
collaborate and come up with your final matrix?
Yeah, why don't we invite everybody to do that if you feel so inclined.
Is that editable, Jay, the document you sent out? Can we fill in the form?
Yes. It's a Word document.
Yeah.
So, okay, if whoever is inclined to, put their thoughts down on those two tiny little lines in each of these.
Can we expand the cell?
Ongoing priorities and new priorities, please do. And, Jay, are they allowed to send them? To be clear, should we just send them to you and you'll get them to, at least then get them to the executive committee will individually work on them and then get them out to everybody again?
Yeah, probably safer to go that route just for now.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think, this was a really good conversation. I appreciate everybody, contributing the ideas as to, what we think is going to be, important for us in the next year. So thank you for that. and hopefully we'll be able to summarize the thoughts that we've had tonight in a good way. Okay, let's coming back. I'm looking back on the agenda to see where we're at, and we are on item D. It took us a while to get here tonight, but it's important work. So item D, Commissioner, staff, and student comments. And I will lead off tonight. I'll take that privilege. And I want to thank our student representative, Ella Cash, for serving as our student representative. And I think both of our student representatives this year have been good quality contributors. And Ella is one who was never shy to share her thoughts and just be a part of the conversation. And for that, I really appreciated your contributions, Ella, and I encourage you to continue when you're in circumstances like this, to continue to share your thoughts and your ideas and not necessarily, be bold about it. And you've done a good job, and thank you for doing that. And the other thing is, I could always rest assured that if there was a little extra task for Ella to be involved with in the meeting, I think she always said yes to me, even if I was asking just minutes before the meeting started. So many thanks, Ella, and we wish you well on your next school endeavor. Where are you going?
UCLA.
UCLA, excellent. Well, very good. And what are you going to major in? Have you decided?
Yeah, political science.
Very good. Well, this was a good start for you, huh?
Yeah.
There's our next president right there.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you, Ella.
Thank you.
All right, that was my comments. We go around the table. Any other commissioner, staff, student comments?
I, for one, was very glad to hear Jay speak tonight. You're so loyal and so quiet and so earnest, and it's nice to know that you have a great perspective to weigh in on. So thank you for that.
Excellent. I think everybody's just tired that we've had an extremely long meeting, huh?
A little bit.
I see Commissioner Ramaran's hand in the background there again. And my eyesight's not that good without my glasses, so you're really challenging me.
I changed it back to brown too. But, thank you, Student Representative Ella Cash too. I'm so proud of also being a Palm Springs High School graduate. So it's always great to see where our alumni, where our students go, where our family goes. I want to just quickly, since I was the liaison for Master Calendar, so just to quickly go through some things for all of you to. This will be really quick. I know it's already it's 7:45. But tomorrow is election day, so don't forget to vote if you haven't voted yet. So ballot drop-off locations are in Palm Springs are at the City of Palm Springs, obviously. And then the James O. Jesse Desert Highland Unity Center. They will go from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So please vote if you haven't voted yet. It's a very important election, special election. Also, just a nice little item I saw on the calendar, and I think a lot of you do follow the calendar for the city. But National Hispanic Heritage Month is celebrated each year, as you know, from September 15th through October 15th. And this year, the theme is Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope. And the Palm Springs Library is involved with this a celebration, learning about traditional foods, change makers, and celebratory traditions in our Hispanic Heritage Month challenge. So you can log on to the Palm Springs Library and follow the challenge. So I challenge you all for that. And then just quickly, because I was able to go through what's coming up as well. Just a reminder that Indigenous Peoples Day is on Monday, October 11th. Filipino American History Month is in October as well. And Larry Itliong Day is a day that is on October 25th, which is looking at a key Filipino labor organizer in October. In November, we're also looking at the Greater Palm Springs Pride Parade, which is going to happen on Sunday, November 7th. And then we also have the Veterans Day Parade, which is on Thursday, November 11th. So just keep those and save those dates. Thank you. Oh, and thank goodness the war in Afghanistan is over. Amen.
Commissioner Vignola, I see a hand up
Oh.
there.
Yes, I don't know where this fits in, but I didn't know if it would be appropriate for the Human Rights Commission to extend their congratulations to Mayor Pro Tem Middleton on her appointment to the Historic California Transgender Advisory Council for the state of California. That announcement just came out today in a press release, but if it is appropriate, we might want to, again, extend our congratulations to her. I don't know the process for doing that.
I think you just did.
Oh, well, how does it get to her though? That's the part I don't know.
You mean she's not watching our meeting on YouTube?
I don't know, maybe she is. I don't know if the chair has or through Jay communicates that to Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, but I'll leave you up to decide how to do that. So that's all I wanted to mention since it was brand new.
Yeah. I'll send Jay, I'll send you a little note to on behalf of the commission, okay? To send to Lisa.
Mr.
Or
Chair,
no,
it's
I can send it
usually
to her. I can send it to her directly, can't I?
usually more powerful coming from you, sir.
Okay, I'll send it to her directly.
Thank you.
I got me all nervous about Brown Act. Okay, any other final comments or move into topical newsworthy items? Yeah, all right. Well, good meeting, everyone. Thank you again for your contributions, and watch for the meeting notice to go out for the special proclamation presentation on September 15th at 5:30. So that will go out, and everybody's welcome to dial in and be part of that presentation. And thank you all for getting us to this point. It's 7:50. So the commission will adjourn to a special joint meeting with the Palm Springs City Council on Wednesday, September 29, 2021. And we don't have a time. Do we, Jay?
I believe it's 5:30.
And it's going to be Zoom, we think?
Yes.
Still? Yeah. And so there'll be a Zoom link for that. So watch that coming forward. I missed item 10 agenda items. We did have a couple items come up for agenda for the next meeting. I would like to ask for the Clean Indoor Air Health and Protection Draft Ordinance to come back to the commission. If you can believe that or not, Commissioner Ramaran. I understand there's been some updates on it that I think we need to take a look at.
Yes, that's correct.
So if we can have that formally come back to us, for another review. I asked for that to be put on the next month's meeting. What else did we have? We identified a couple things. Did anybody take notes? Anybody have items that we have to add? Jay, did you note anything that we needed to add? There was something else. There was something else that came out of conversation. We will remember it and figure out what that is. But other than that, I think now we're adjourned. So thank you all. We'll see you soon on YouTube or Zoom.
All right. Can't
All
wait.
right. Have a good night. Mhm.